everyone, this is Prince with You Are Linked Through Media. We are here with Jim Stavis, the author of So Jim, I'd just like to ask you a couple questions, if I may. What inspired you in writing this book?
I had an interesting, inspiring story which has taken place over the course of my life, which was filled with adversity and how to overcome adversity. I actually am a triple organ transplant, so due to juvenile diabetes at a young age, I was predicted that I would only I'd be lucky to live to 50 years old. And they told me that my life would be filled with heart disease, kidney disease, amputations, all of these horrible things. And as a teenager, I just decided that I was going to do the best I could, live my life, and hopefully by the time those things came to be, that there would be a solution for me. Never would have I believed that transplant became the solution. And in 2005, when I was kind of close to death, I received a new heart, kidney, and pancreas transplant, so no longer a diabetic. I've met the donor family, and it's a very inspiring connection that we have. And so the book was basically my story, but it's also my advice for anybody that's going through adversity of any kind, and how you, through positivity and a strong belief system, that anything's possible. You can overcome whatever it is that you're confronted with. And so that was really the genesis of the book. And so far it's been very well received. I get a lot of people that tell me that they found my story to be not only educational but inspiring as well.
Great, thanks. I just want to touch a little bit on based on
Yes.
What is your writing process in writing the book? What made you come up with the book? Was it a sensual thing, like
Yes.
I'm going to write this now, or what was it?
I used to, or I shouldn't say I used to, for my business, I write a newsletter. I have a steel distribution company called Paragon Steel that I started back in 1988. And I would write a newsletter for the company, and in the newsletter I would include stories about steel, business, just a variety of topics. And I started, as my health saga unfolds, I started writing about my story. And I found that the reception that I got was amazing. I mean, people were writing to me, telling me about their story, and they appreciated my positive perspective. And it's almost like I developed a fan club. And
so it was a gradual process.
Yes. So I realized that there's an audience out there for this type of thing, and there's not enough good stories, positive stories, and so I felt like by telling my story, I could help other people, and that's really what it was about. It wasn't really about a memoir per se, but it was a blueprint for how can you get through the adversity in your life. And so it was kind of written with the audience in mind versus just me telling a story.
Right. And obviously you mentioned it was for sure a gradual process, and you realized that there's an audience out there.
Yes.
But for this book in particular, the only option, how did it feel when you first, kind of wrote the first page? Was it like a flow, or did you sit with it for a little bit, or how did it feel?
I actually tried having someone else write the book as a ghostwriter.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I didn't find that they could express how I felt. Right. It needed to be in my voice. And so after working for a little bit on what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it, I was originally thinking that this was going to be somewhat of a platform for me to speak from, because I would do some speaking. And then after the book came out, I started getting these positive reviews, and people were like encouraging me to
keep going.
Keep going,
Yeah.
promote it, and that's this was my first and only book that I've ever written. People are asking me, when's the next book going to come out?
When is the next book, Jim?
I mean, to me, this was kind of telling this story and sharing my view of how you get through tough times. That was the main thrust that I was hoping to achieve. I feel like I achieved that. Subsequent to that, my wife of 42 years had ovarian cancer, and unfortunately I lost her last year. So that's kind of my most recent adversity that I had. So I kind of have perspective on what that whole process is like. So I thought about writing about that, but I haven't started as of yet. So.
Of course, yeah, no worries. If you were to compare your book to a popular one, which would it be, or do you think the book is unique within itself?
So one of my favorite books was Tuesdays with Maury, and I, in a way, kind of patterned it as if I was Maury, and people were asking me, so what do you think about this and this and this and this? And that's kind of what was an inspirational style of writing that I liked. It's very conversational. It's not, you don't have to be...
Is it in first person?
Yes, and it's a pretty easy read, and I don't talk in medical terms. It's very, it's written in such a way that your average person can relate to it. So I even, one of our friends is a teacher, and she brought it into her 5th grade class, and they, as a class, read the book, and then they brought me in at the end for question and answer, for a Q&A. And it was really interesting for me to see the kinds of questions that I would get from 5th graders versus when I go in front of more of an adult audience.
Yeah.
And a lot of interesting feedback. I mean, I found it really interesting, their perceptions of what does a hard time look like when you're a 5th grader.
Right.
So
it's a different perspective.
Totally different perspective. But in a way, I found it kind of inspiring in its own right. Because a lot of the kids didn't understand what diabetes was. They didn't understand what congestive heart failure was. So they're looking at it from a perspective of what if I had a problem? How would I deal with it? So it was good.
And Jim, you mentioned that this obviously is this your only book?
Yes.
This is your only book as well, and still working on the next one. Just a message to young writers. What is your message to those who want to start writing, or those who have given up on your dream of publishing and promoting?
It's a great question. Honestly, it was the first book I'd ever read. Ever wrote. So that was unique. Having a book published was a learning process as well, and yet I think the hardest thing is the promotion process. I mean, I had some book signings which were pretty successful. I did a documentary on the story which gave me some publicity, and it's kind of a process. I mean, I think that there's a lot of people out there who will promise that they'll help get your book promoted, published, etc. But you just have to realize that there's a lot of people out there that are just kind of looking to capitalize off of new writers, because new writers don't know they don't know that process.
Yes.
The first publisher that I went to and had.
Yeah, what was the process like?
So I chose. Again, it's hard to know because this is my first experience, but I chose a company that subsequently went out of business. So they end owing me royalties and whatnot. So that was a learning curve, and then I subsequently hooked up with UR-Link. And so I've been with them for about a year, maybe a year and a half. And in each instance, you kind of learn a little bit more along the way. When you're not a famous person or you don't have a huge Instagram following, you're just kind of an individual that's trying to make your story stand out. That's hard. It's not easy. There's a lot of writers at this festival that are just trying to have their book stand out amongst so many others.
Just to segue to that quickly, Jim, what do you think, why should readers buy and read your book?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think that the premise that I start from is that everybody has adversity in their life. If not now, eventually we all do. That's part of life. And so the question really is, what are you going to find that's going to help you get through that adversity? What messaging can I provide that people will relate to and say, yeah, his problems might be worse than mine, but look, he was able to get through it. Why can't I get through it? And it's all about mindset and thinking positive. And thinking positive can affect your attitude and subsequently your behavior, and in my instance, ultimately the result. So I think that it's a good positive message, and I think that almost everyone that embraces it can benefit.
Great. There you have it. When the author, Jim Stavis, when hope is your only option. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.